In the last class, we were talking about algebra of continuity. So there we got two functions f and g which are continuous at a particular point x equals c. Then f plus g and f minus g, f dot g, f by g and etc. few functions, they are also will be continuous at that point. And we have already proved this part, that is f plus g will also be continuous. Then the proof of f plus g and f minus g are quite similar. Just instead of that plus you have to use minus, then the proof will be done. So you can do this by yourself. Now we are moving to this part, f dot g. That is, here we have to prove if f and g, two functions which are continuous at a particular point x equal to c, then their product function f dot g will also be continuous at that point. So we have to prove fg is continuous at c. So we are starting with this function fgx minus fgc, modulus of this quantity. We need to show this quantity is less than epsilon. So this is fxgx minus fcgc. Writing it like this, fx into gx minus gc. Okay, then fx, after opening the bracket we will get fxgx minus fxgc, which is not in there, so we have to add plus fxgc minus that quantity fcgc. So we can write it like this, plus taking fcgc common from there, so fx minus fc. Now this is one part, this is another part, applying triangle inequality over there. So we will get lesser equal to mod fx into mod gx minus gc plus mod gc into mod fx minus fc. Okay. Now check this part. This is obviously less than epsilon by 2 and this is also less than epsilon by 2 because f and g both are continuous at c. So the problematic part is this part, because this is containing the variable x. This won't create any problem. This is gc, a constant thing. So we can easily write epsilon by 2 into gc for this part, then gc will be cancelled out. But for this part fx, it contains a variable. So we have to do something for that. Now we have in our hand the given condition, that is f is continuous at c, right? Then for given epsilon, we are choosing the epsilon value as epsilon 0 or epsilon naught. Okay, for given epsilon not greater than 0, there exists some delta 1 depending on that epsilon, which is also greater than 0, such that modulus of fx minus fc is less than epsilon naught whenever x minus c is less than delta 1, right? We can write this one. Here we are choosing a particular value of epsilon, which is epsilon naught. We can do this because epsilon is already pre-assigned and given. We can choose it by our own preferences. So now from there we can write minus epsilon naught, just breaking this mod, less than fx minus fc less than epsilon naught. So it will become fx, taking this part only, we only need that part, fx less than fc plus epsilon naught. Okay, that means mod fx less than mod fc plus epsilon naught. Epsilon naught is positive, so no need to take modulus over there. So fx less than mod fc plus epsilon. Now check, this could be treated as an upper bound for fx whenever x belongs to this range, right? So we will use this inequality over there. Now check the last line of this part, this one. Okay, we have to prove this whole thing is less than epsilon. Now for this part we get the upper bound is mod fc plus epsilon naught, and for this part this is also a constant. So we are choosing the maximum value of this gc and the upper bound of mod fx. Then we can use this as capital M and we can use this over this inequality. So we are choosing, let capital M equal to the maximum of mod GC and modulus of FC plus epsilon naught. Okay, now using this capital M over this inequality, so we will get in the next line, that is mod FGX minus FGC, that part will be less or equal to capital M into mod Fx minus Fc plus capital M into mod Gx minus Gc. Right? Now what we have to do? We have to again apply the continuity, the definition of continuity of F and G, so that this part is less than epsilon by 2m and this part is also less than epsilon by 2m. So we are writing, for given epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta 2 depend on that epsilon greater than 0 such that modulus of Fx minus Fc is less than epsilon by 2m. Why we are choosing epsilon by 2m? Because we want to show this whole quantity is less than epsilon. That means if we choose for this part, it will be epsilon by 2, and for this part it will be epsilon by 2. Now if you choose epsilon by 2m, then this m will be cancelled out, and m obviously is positive because it's an upper bound, so no, it cannot be a 0. So Fx minus upper bound for a modulus value, so it cannot be 0, so we can easily choose epsilon by 2m, that is Fx minus Fc is less than epsilon by 2m, and there exists also a delta 3 greater than 0 such that Gx minus Gc is less than epsilon by 2m. Okay, now what we have to do? We have to take all the minimum of all such delta 1, delta 2, delta 3. So let delta equals minimum of delta 1, delta 2, delta 3. Then all the inequalities hold for that delta. So for x minus c less than delta, we are using these two inequalities, this one and this one, over our this inequality here. So we can write modulus of Fgx minus Fgc less than m into epsilon by 2m plus m into epsilon by 2m. So m will be cancelled out, epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2 equals epsilon. So from this line what we can say, that is Fg, this function is continuous at x equals c. Okay. Similarly, the converse is not true. You can show it by taking Dirichlet function as usual. Now all the other algebra of continuity, that is 1 by f or f by g or all these functions, 1 by f, f by g or mod f, all the proofs are similar, just like the limit theorems. You can easily do it by yourself. Okay. So I am not proving all the other proofs here. I am moving to the boundedness part. That is the relation between boundedness and continuity. This is very important. Relation between boundedness and continuity. Okay, so starting with the theorem. The theorem actually states the relation between the boundedness and continuity of a function, and it states that if a function is continuous in an interval close AB, then it is bounded therein. That means whenever we are considering any closed and bounded interval and a function is continuous there, then it will also be bounded there. We have to prove it. Okay. proof is very easy using the concept of sequence. Obviously we will prove it using the concept of sequence. So if possible, we will apply method of contradiction. So if possible, let f is not bounded in there. F is not bounded in close AB. Okay. Now a function is not bounded. That means either it is unbounded above or it is unbounded below. So case 1, let f is unbounded above. Let f is unbounded above in close AB. Then what we can say, that for each n belongs to natural number, there exists some x belongs to close AB such that fx greater than n, right? Because whenever it is bounded above, that means for each x we will get some k such that all the fx lies before k. That means if all fx will be less or equal to k. But we cannot find such k when the function is unbounded above. That means whenever we choose any natural number n, there exists at least one x which will lie after this k. That means this fx will be greater than n for each natural number. Whatever natural number you choose, suppose you choose 100, then we will get some x at least such that fx will greater than this 100. You choose 1000, then also we will get some x at least such that fx will greater than 1000, like this. Okay. So for each natural number n, we will always get some x in the interval such that fx is greater than n. Now we are considering a sequence. Considering a sequence xn in close AB such that f of xn is greater than n. That means taking all that x into account, that is for which the boundedness failed, or taking all such x's, we are considering a sequence, naming it as xn such that f of xn is greater than n. Okay. Now close AB, it's a bounded interval, closed and bounded interval, and we are considering a sequence xn over close AB, right? That means xn is also a bounded sequence because we have chosen it over close AB. That is, xn is a bounded sequence. Now we are applying Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem for sequence. What does it state? It states that according to Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem, for every bounded sequence there exists a convergent subsequence, right? So there exists a convergent subsequence of xn also. According to Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem, we are naming that subsequence as xnk. Okay, and it is a convergent subsequence. That means it will converge to some finite limit. Let it is converge to some point xi. Okay, so limit k tending to infinity xnk equals xi. Now xnk is a sequence in close AB. It is a sequence in close AB because it is a subsequence of xn and which is in close AB. That means this is also in close AB. That is, this is a sequence we are considering from close AB. That means its limit will also belongs to close AB according to the limit theorem of sequence. That means this xi also belongs to close AB. So in the next line we are writing that xi also belongs to close AB. Okay. Now again, f is continuous in close AB, and xnk, this sequence is tending to xi. Then by sequential criteria of continuity, what we can say, that f of xnk, this sequence will tend to f of xi, right? And which shows that f is bounded at x equals xi because it has a limit at that point f xi. So f is bounded at the point x equal to xi, but which is a contradiction. Why? Because we have already taken that f is not bounded over close AB, and we get at one point where f is bounded, which is a contradiction. Okay, that means our assumption was wrong. F is bounded on close AB. So for case 1 it is proved. Actually bounded above, because for case 1 we have chose it is not bounded above. So f is bounded above on close AB. Now moving to case 2. Let f is not bounded below. In close AB. In that case we will consider gx equals minus fx. Okay, then clearly g is not bounded above, because it is the negation of a not bounded below function. That means g is not bounded above. Then apply the whole procedure, whole case 1 procedure over g, then you will get the result by case 1. So in that case also similarly by case 1, case 2, from case 2 we can also prove that f is bounded below also. That means whenever a function is defined on closed AB, which is continuous over closed AB, then it is bounded therein. Okay, continuous in closed AB will imply it is bounded in closed AB. This proves the theorem. Now there are few converse part of this theorem, that is few notes from that theorem we can conclude. So number 1 is, note 1 is, converse of this theorem is not true. That means whenever we will consider a bounded function over a closed interval, it might not be continuous there. Okay, so for that proof we need some counter example. We are choosing the function fx equals 1 when x belongs to close 0 1, difference half, and some another value, say half, at x equals to half. Choosing this function, this is clearly defined on close 0 1, right? Now check at the point half. Half is the breaking point here. So if you choose at x equal to half, if you try to check at x equal to half the continuity part of the function, this is obviously not continuous, because f of half take the value this half, and f of half minus and half plus both take the value 1. That means it has a discontinuity at the point x equals to half. So the function is not continuous at half, though it is bounded therein. Why it is bounded? Because if you check its range, what is the range of f over there? The range is this set 1 comma half, which is obviously bounded because it is lesser equal to 1 in any way. So it is bounded therein but not continuous. But not continuous, though it is defined on a closed and bounded interval. Okay, that means the converse of the above theorem is not always true. Next is note 2. The theorem is not true for open intervals. That means instead of choosing closed interval, f is continuous on closed interval, if we choose that f is continuous on open interval AB, then it might not be bounded there. Okay, so for that reason also we also need one counter example to show. That is, we have to find one function over some open interval. There it is continuous but might not be bounded. So this one will be your homework. Try to find one example. Okay, one counter example f which is defined on some open interval which is continuous there but not bounded. That means that closed interval, that property always needed for boundedness. Okay.